This conference will now be recorded.
I mean, yes.
Correct information.
Call the work session to order at 8:04. Silence your cell phones and stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Michael, take it away, please.
Thank you, sir. Just trying to see if the HC might respond or not, but I wanted to take 15 to 20 minutes before the next work session item, at least, to rekindle the budget conversation. There's been a couple of months in between, of course, and that'll be certainly easier if I'm able to pull it up on the screen for you, but that remains to be seen for a moment. But before that happens, we'll switch gears a little bit first and come back to the return of funds from Mid-Prairie. It was mentioned by a commissioner a few months ago that if a payment was returned this fiscal year, they wanted to revisit that conversation, how that may materially impact the 2024 levy and or budget. So I at least wanted to bring that back to the commissioners to talk holistically about some of those surplus dollars from Mid-Prairie, our Powers Health collaboration for those in attendance. How, if at all, the commissioners would like to see those dollars factored into 2024 narrative, how you, from a philosophical standpoint, would like to see those dollars utilized at all, either now or in the future. But predominantly wanted to have just an initial dialogue of those dollars and immediate items on any of your minds for the use of them that we should be considering as staff before we bring you anything final on December 19th.
Take it away. Yeah, there's a significant amount of money that's coming back as a surplus reserves from Mid-Prairie, and I went back and forth. I want it to come back as relief to the levy. How we do that, I don't know. You know, do you put it in a fund so that if there's a spike in Mid-Prairie's budget, human services, that we can soften that blow? Or do you use it as an overall general levy relief? And to what degree do you do that? You know, to me, it's overtaxed dollars, and it needs to come back to those constituents. But I'm up in the air on how that, or how if you use it as a modifier to bring down that levy year after year, or do you set it as you bring it back so much a year, you know, and then just, if you bring it all back as tax relief this year, then you're setting yourself up for a spike next year, you know, and we don't want to do that either.
So is this a one-time money back, or do you know what next year holds?
Well, this was a buildup of reserves over there because of COVID. Our programs declined through COVID, and that offered us this surplus. We're going to keep pretty tight watch on our budget also, but it isn't going to be this one. This was but if we get over 35% over at Mid-Prairie, then that's going to come back to us. So if we have under budgets year after year, then we will continue to get some payments. not to this degree that I can see. Now, Finance Committee, you must have met, were you in that? Michael?
Not the most recent one, no.
Tammy was.
Yeah, and we, from the preliminary, we are backing it. It was 2 point something at preliminary, and now we're at 1.4. So it did come down about $100,000.
Yeah, about 100.
So the way it sits now, Wasika's is actually going to go down from last year. So our contribution.
Our contribution to.
And this was since COVID, from COVID, so you're talking 2020, 21, and 22.
I think it's important that we have the context that as Commissioner Christopherson said, this is a buildup of reserves that was the result of not less service during COVID, but more state and federal money coming in to do the work.
Some of the programs did decline.
And some of the programs did decline as far as the number of people needing service because there was all these other services out there. Also, the fact that MNPRA did not have in place a way to deal with or a policy on reserve funds above a certain percentage. We, in our joint powers, we have a minimum reserve set, but had never been in the situation where we had to deal with excess reserve. And so the board worked with administration to come up with a policy to address that, to make sure we continue to have reserve. I do think, I appreciate your comments, Commissioner, that if we just apply it all, we're setting ourselves up for a spike next year. Also, this is kind of a one-time thing. We're in the target range now for where reserve is going to be, unless we have vastly overestimated our expenses over there. I don't anticipate that we're going to be the beneficiary of this again in any large amount. And in fact, nothing is going to come back if that reserve doesn't continue to be what it needs to be. And we would have to put in additional to maintain the reserve, because now we have both an upper and a lower limit on it.
But essentially, this is.
It can't fall below a certain point, or in our budget plans, we're gonna budget to maintain that reserve as well.
We're going to try to maintain that 35%. But I don't know if they'll ever, I don't know that they will, well, no, they won't cash call to get it to 35%, but we may have to budget accordingly.
Yes.
And I know the Finance Committee would have looked at that. So you're talking 2020, 2021, and 2022. Is that fair to say it was 3 years worth? And each year, we're a different percentage of mid-prairie. Are we 26%, 26.46 last year? You know what I'm saying? And all that was taken into consideration for that pool of money.
Well, we take the current formula to distribute it back.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you didn't look at those other 2 or 3
The reserves could get built at a different rate than what it's getting distributed.
Exactly.
And I don't know how you could do that. I think they take the current formula now to bring it back, or the current percentage.
Well, yeah, and there was a formulaic change recently as well too. So this was pre-formulaic change, this disbursement. So now Wasika County's natural rate will increase slightly due to that formulaic change. Just how that all shuffles in 2025. So no impact for the current fiscal year we're discussing here.
But the percentages change yearly with population change.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's roughly 25% if you're going to try to average it out over the last few years, plus or minus a few tenths of a percent. But it's around a quarter of the total budgetary or levy demand, pretty consistently. So if
Not
you're,
enough to make sure that the monies wouldn't be that significant.
Right. It wouldn't be a significant change through those 3 years too. And even the formula change in 25, which will be coming to our board next month, won't have a lot of significant change to us. We're just taking different parameters that make what we feel right now is making more sense to the shifts in services and population.
yeah, looking at the current data, that formulaic change would have been about a $25,000 application to a city county using today's numbers. So it's not earth-shattering.
So do you have a recommendation? I mean, we're not deciding in here, but recommendations are key.
Well, I guess if we have certain targets to levy, where we want to end up with, there is that money that we could use to get there. Or, my initial thought when this was coming forward was to use that money to keep human services in check. So if we get these spikes, because we don't know coming out of COVID, we're still coming out of COVID, whether you like to use the word or not. So the next couple of years will still be, we don't know if we'll be under budget or over budget. So we could use that money to keep that department in check. So we could also use it to get to where we want to be in our levy. So
Michael, do you have a number that you would feel comfortable with? And is this non-interest where we can?
Oh, no, we're earning interest on it
We
now.
are earning
Yeah,
interest.
that was within seconds of receiving it, essentially. That was the first. And we'll continue to do so indefinitely until the board decides there are better uses of those funds or more immediate uses. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have a recommendation or a full answer, but I think I would like us to think a little bit about our own reserves. We had a fair amount of angst over reserve at Mid Prairie as we watched it go. And I want us to think locally. Our auditor treasurer and our administration does a great job of making sure that we always have enough reserves. And if this is just going to add to our reserves in a way that isn't necessary, I don't know that's wise. How many pots of reserve do we need? If on the other hand, I don't know that this needs to be separate reserve. Every year we come to the budgeting process holistically saying, we know that this and this and this and this are all part of it, but it's all got to come from somewhere. And us setting up a separate reserve just for human services, although we know the volatility of that area. I don't know if I feel like that's necessary. At the same time, this is one-time money. We're not going to have this chunk of change back from inquiry again. I don't anticipate. Their budgeting process is getting better. They're using better tools. And so are we. So I don't, the idea of a separate account, and I surely don't want us to just lay it all down. If it goes into the regular reserve accounts we have at are earning at this point, good interest. And we think holistically about how all our reserves across the county are used to shore up the business of the county. And we as a board have the same philosophy as most of our constituents. We don't like a lot of debt. We like to get high interest, pay no interest. Those are our philosophies that are true for people that live in Waseca County. And I think we want to just keep those philosophies in mind, however we do this. And let's not make it too complicated.
Mr. Chair, just to that point in terms of reserves, when we're talking about audited financial statements, there's some differentiation there. General fund reserves, special fund, special reserves, special revenue fund reserves, I should say. They're broken up into different buckets. So right now, this would be sitting in a special fund, special revenue fund. So you're going to see, you won't see this balance impacting the general fund reserve today. So for the 2023 audited financial statements that you'll see, I'll be ambitious in July of 2024. Right now, today, you would not see that reflected in there. So that's just something to be aware of when we talk about these kind of different buckets and pools. So we'd come back to you several months from now and say, well, that magic number is 40%. When in reality, it might be 41 and a half, it might be 42. There are just certain things we can go over here from this bucket and grab and put into this bucket, rightfully so. It's just semantics of what we're calling it today. So just something to be aware of when we talk about fund balances, how we talk about them versus what we would see on the actual audited financial statements.
So in 2024, when we get our audit, it won't be part of our general fund reserve number.
Not as it sits today. So they'll start that pre-work in January.
That's a tough one because I don't want that money to get lost just in the general fund. But yet, I don't like extra funds either.
I just want to toss this out here that while we put it in a special revenue account and it stays in that, it's got the different columns on the financial statement of what the fund balances are. So we put it in that account for tracking purposes. We pool the cash for investments. So I don't look at, okay, I'm going to buy a CD with this money. I look at the overall cash and invest according to what we have at the time for investing. So we're not investing separate, it's not separate bank accounts, but this way we can track it. It can be moved to the general fund, but then it is not tracked. Then it just becomes part of that job.
jail justice center, could that impact? It could, but minorly, I guess it was like for 2024, even if it did. And there are other capital infrastructure projects that we could entertain. Staff could present to the board for perusal, but they haven't all been factored into the 2024 budget. So there's any staff request to date for capital infrastructure in Fund 11 is already in there. I should say it that way. There aren't any immediate asks over and above capital infrastructure that are looming out there that I'd really love to get plugged in. I don't have a way to do it. So it's, from the staff perspective, it's a comfortable place for the budget narrative. And that's where I was going to go. My next question is, we know we were at 1.5% preliminary. What else would we like to see going into December 19th meeting in terms of options, the thresholds, etc.? Just want to be as helpful and make you as informed as we can for the information you want to see going into that. Well, in advance of that. Okay, no, that's fine. I know what I'll put together outside of any immediate demands or requests for information. So. Worst case scenario, you'll have to live with what I give you, I guess. I'll make sure you have plenty of information well in advance of that, of course, and I'll revise our property impacts as well, now that we have finalized proposed tax information. Those statements have gone out, you know what actual rates are, so we can look at some of that historical info too, where we're trending as a county from a tax rate standpoint, things like that. I don't have any immediate concerns. Yeah, it popped back up now. I had to dismantle and restart everything, and felt your presence coming. So. Yeah, thank you, Heather. Yeah. Okay, as soon as you call.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah, let them come in. You're dorky. I am.
Good morning.
You guys want to just sit up front here?
Roll. Don't let the chair roll. The chairs roll, so just be careful. Yep.
Yeah, they're kind of rolling. You don't want to take it away on you.
Good morning and welcome.
Well, you know me very well. This is Paul Stennis.
Blossom and
Chico. Good morning. Welcome.
And Paul doesn't know you guys up there, so we can introduce.
Commissioner Brad Crowley,
Brian Hargett.
Doug Christopherson.
Dean Alter.
I'm Rachel, the county attorney.
Michael Johnson, County Administrator.
Beth, I'm in the county administrator's office.
Yeah, if you want to, Larry, if you're the spokesperson or whatever, go to the podium.
Well, first I want to start out, thank you for allowing us to have this time to come in front of you. We We've had several communications that we sent to you, and we received some back, but nothing that had any answers. So hopefully at this meeting, we get feedback from you guys, some answers that we haven't received, so that's what we're here for today. So I can't provide any more information than what we've already provided, so you got everything right there.
Does anybody else from the family want to speak, or?
Mr. Chair, I know it would be helpful from my standpoint, and Larry, thank you for the information provided. If we could just have kind of a recap of information from the family's perspective. None of us were there and part of that situation at the time. So if we could understand and hear specifically what the family's, if nothing else, request is in this measure, that would be helpful. I know at least for me and probably the commissioner's perspective as well too. I don't know if there's anyone from the family that's kind of willing to just walk through, here's what happened and here's where we'd like to see us go from here.
Do you want to talk about what happened? Or do you want me to do it?
You do.
Okay.
I can't even hear them.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll try to speak up so you can hear us.
You know, when you get 95, your hearing kind of disappears.
Oh, you've had it for a long time.
Yeah,
And Paul just had a birthday in September, so.
and them old tractors years ago, you know, it's funny, I can hear anything. Yeah, so it's a great wonder, you know, that I'm still here. But maybe the good Lord don't want me. So who knows, you know?
Well, we're here because in 2016, when we had that berm put up on the highway that flooded my dad's shed, he had 3 feet of water in there, and since he's owned that thing since what, 1952?
What, the building?
Your farm?
Yeah, I purchased it, but that building was there since
68?
68, and it's never had water in it until they put that berm up on the highway. So that was a mistake by somebody, put that berm up. You know, when the water got that high, I put 3 feet of water in my shed. And we had, I had a lot more damage than what he wrote up, but I would say it's close to 80 to 100,000, because I lost lots of good motors I had to tow out in junk pile, and that I took out of vehicles, because back in the 1950, late 50 and 60s, people found out that 216 engines weren't big enough, so I put in new motors, and bigger motors, some V8s and some new style bigger 6-cylinders. And a lot of those motors that I had to throw away only had maybe 12,000 miles on them. And about 3 years ago, I got called for 2 motors, because they knew I had done that, took motors out of people's and put bigger motors in. And then transmissions, oodles of transmissions I had to throw away because they were full of water. And so I don't know, there was so damn much stuff that I had buckets on my tractor loader that I had to take out of the shed. And so I just, it costed me a lot of money. I just had bought a new Turo lawnmower that spring, and it had 16 hours on it, and that ruined the whole goddamn motor, the mower, because, 3 feet of water in the shed, the motor was covered up, and Charlie took it in and see if there was any hope to save anything on it, and there was no hope because all electrical parts on the motor was shot, and the motor was plumb full, and that was one of them that you steer, and all the clutches were shot, and that mower cost me $12,000 with tax, and so I took it in, and Charlie says, well, I'll give you $1,000 off on the next one. So right there, it cost me $24,000 just on that one mower, on that deal. And then I had a Farm Pro tractor that's got maybe, it had about 300 hours on it, and that ruined that. And I had a 9-foot mower behind that, but I didn't like that when I mowed the highway ditch. The top wheel on that tractor would spin. That's why I bought that Turo lawnmower. And so between them two, it's over $40,000 damage, and just two outfits in there. So I thought that was awful shocking, my billfold.
Plus, he had all his old vintage snowmobiles that got
Oh, yeah.
underwater, and he had old tractors, all his toys. He had $2,000 worth of things that he had out for Christmas, because he always put Christmas trees and deer and all that stuff, spent hours. There was oil he had drained out in tubs, which spilled over. So everything in that shed was full of oil. It was dangerous, first off, to walk in there, even if you got on wood or something, I was worried. We spent hours out there trying to clean up that mess, and we still haven't got, a lot of it taken care of yet. He hasn't got the tractors going. I mean, he's too old to do it. And when this all happened, he spent hours trying to find out who put that berm up on the road, and nobody would fess up at all. He even called Mr. Wald's, his office in Mankato, and he never even returned his call. So that was the thing, that he did everything that he possibly could to find out who did it so they could rectify it at that point, and it never happened. I'm sure that if it happened to your property, I'm sure somebody would be on it just like him, because he lost a lot of money right there. Plus the help that, the kids, we were out there all the time helping him, trying to clean up that mess, and he was almost in tears.
Yeah, I lost a lot of antique tractors too, 1020s, 1530s, and there's two 1530s in there. And there was a 2236, but that belonged to my son. I sold that to him, and drained the water out of that one, and got that going, but them other ones are no good. And I got 12 antique snowmobiles from 69 up to 80. They were all in mint condition, and they were all plumb full of water, so ruined the motor, and I suppose all the bogey wheels and stuff, and they were mint condition. I mean, most of them I bought new, and when I got so many miles, I bought another new one and parked that out there, so. And so there's oodles of damage that isn't, measurable, that we, and he got on his report on a lot of the snowmobiles, but I was getting, when I was, people were buying them from different towns, I was getting $15 to $2,000 because they were in excellent condition. And now they're still out there, but wouldn't get $400 or $500 if I got that, because the motors cost more money than what this, they can go out and buy another sled. So I mean, it's just quadruple damage that that you people can't see, but I see it, and it it kind of hurts, because the guy saves all this stuff for years, and it kind of hurt.
The report I sent to you guys, I took pictures, but like some of that other stuff he'd already pulled out of there, put in a pile. Well, I couldn't verify it was in the shed, so, that's why I didn't have pictures of that. But they took a lot of stuff out already. I can only document what was in the shed left, so.
So in 2010, when we had the other significant water issue, was there any damage or any water in the shed in 2010?
Right, Hardy was asking, in 2010, when we had that flood, when we got a nursing home there, did you have any water in your shed in 2010?
No,
Okay.
no, because I had, when the Slate brothers started trucking, they had semi to haul gravel, and not just a box. They had semi-trailers behind their tractors, and I had 12 loads of crushed rock hauled in there. So the inside of the shed is damn near 2 feet higher than the outside. And so there's never got no water in the shed. It got pretty close to the doors, but it would never got in the shed because it's up in the air.
Can I show you a photo? This is the.
So your floor in the shed is higher than the outside?
This is the spring when we had the flood in the.
The floor in your shed is higher than the outside?
Got up.
Is the floor in your shed
Way up there.
higher than the outside?
Yeah, the floor is about 2 feet higher inside the building than it is outside.
So, and that was the view out on my field. There's a drain in there up to the road. So you can see that there was no water at that point.
Yeah. You'll see, if you study Highway 13, where the culvert goes underneath the road where Bow Creek goes in, it's a lower elevation. When it goes north on 13 towards Paul and North Town, it comes up a little bit. The water can go over 13 there, like it did in 2010, and not reach this place because the road is lower there. So that's the relief. But when you put the dike up and then you go ahead relief, that brought the water level up behind it.
The whole problem is in 2010, we basically lost our nursing home.
Yep.
We had to move 40 people out of there. That's old people.
Yep.
So there's a safety issue there. We just about destroyed our locker plant. We had $500,000, I don't know what the figure is, but a lot of damage in town. That's why when 2016 come around, we didn't want that to happen again. or we didn't want to have to move 40 people out of that nursing home. So although you guys understand that none of us were here at that time, but that's why it was done. So I can't sit here and say it was a wrong decision, because it was the right decision for the community. It was the wrong decision for you, you know, and
Well, I
it
don't
was,
think, you know, legally, yeah, you're right. And I don't think we can argue that, you know, you did it to protect the Richmond, right? But, you know, that's good, you're protecting the Richmond, but you also have to be accountable for the reaction, what consequences that cause. There's where the issue is. We're not saying you couldn't put that up, we are saying you have the legal right to do that, and we appreciate putting the Richmond, but anytime you do something, if there's consequences, that's where we're at right now.
right. No, and I totally understand that. The issue we run into then is for one thing, it's 7 years old. You know, it's an old issue that none of us were here. So how do us as commissioners sit here and try to make things right? You know, it's like you said, a lot of things that already been hauled out of there. Your estimating values. It's very difficult for the commissioners to open up that to where, because back in 2010, when we didn't, when nothing was done, I shouldn't say we, but when there was nothing done there was a lot of people that lost a lot in their basements, lost a lot. Even last spring, you know, in the last one. I know people that lost their entire basements and didn't have flood insurance.
But that wasn't man-made. That was natural flow of water.
Right.
But then you guys put the berm
But it
up.
wasn't, but it
Stop
was,
the
it
flow
could,
of
you could
water.
argue that it was man-made because a lot of it was back water coming from the city sewage. So, yeah, we didn't stop any water or anything. And I'm not trying to belittle the situation, but
Emergency management is what has authority to put that in there. And that was built like under emergency management. I've been told that several times. But emergency management is an entity of the county. I don't see where our emergency management role or actions have a timeline of it stops here or there. This is a result of emergency management protocol, which is fine. We understand that. But just because you weren't on the board doesn't mean it takes the reliability of the consequences off the county. The board changes, staff changes all the time, but the liability is still from the county. It's emergency management, which is fine, but it doesn't matter if your board's been changed over. The consequence is still there. Paul made all the moves he could at the time. He talked to, I know of that meeting in 2019 with the county at the New Richland. He talked to county staff about it. You were there for sure, January 19, and
where was it at?
in New Richland. And so in 2019, county staff knew about it, and Paul talked to everybody as much as he could beforehand. So the word was out there. It's not like this was left in until this year. But, you know, Paul didn't know the true avenues or the situations like I have been exposed to. So that's why I stepped in here. But like I said, it was built for emergency management, which is fine. But I don't see where emergency management has a timeline of their actions, you know.
And the reason I say the time is, you know, it's easier to get values, easier to get what damage was done at the time.
Well, true, but, you know, we're not at, what I sent in was only 30-some thousand. So we haven't brought up this 100,000, you know, so it probably would have been higher then, but since I can't document it and we can't verify it with those pictures, that's why it's not included in there. So your valuation now is less than what it would have been years ago. What valuation we got now is what we can verify with the pictures. So he can't say we can't verify it because that stuff I can't verify, so we didn't include it.
At any time, there was some FEMA money out there at one time. Did the insurance company ever come out? Did you call the insurance company to come out and look at what had happened, or did they?
He contacted about everybody,
Did
and
you,
nobody would fess up to who put the berm up.
well, he's asking if you called the insurance company at the time, did they come out and look at it?
No, I called Mankato Highway Department because they're control on 13. And I asked them who the hell allowed to put a berm up on Highway 13. We never authorized putting a berm up on the Highway 13. So then I got on the sheriff department up in Waseca because I thought, well, damn it, somebody would have some authority to do something. And he said, no, I didn't have nothing to do with that, that berm on the highway. And I said, well, who did? Well, I don't know. And so that's the way it was. So the buck was passed this way, that way, that way, that way. I went up to Nurch and council up there, and I said, who authorized to put that berm up on the highway? Well, we asked somebody to protect the care center, and that's as far as I got out of the council in Richland. And so there I was, deadlocked. I called the state deal, and then I tried to get a hold of the one that's governor now. He was a representative in Mankato, and I couldn't get to talk to him no how. I always got this sidekick down there, and I could never get to talk to the real guy. And well, then eventually I talked to that assistant to his, and he says, we didn't have nothing to do with that deal that you're involved in, because I asked him about that, and he didn't know nothing about that berm building either. So there I was handicapped. I called all the places I figured I could get some information, but it just bubbled back in my face, and I didn't have no answer. So I just said, well, I guess I gotta take the loss and smile about it, because I ain't got no leg to stand on. So
I've talked to insurance about that.
huh?
I've talked to the insurance company about if you had insurance on that, and if that water came in there, and if you tried to turn a claim in, I gave a scenario to the insurance company saying that if I own a property like this and it got flooded because of a dike on a man-made structure, got flooded, or never been flooded before, will they, under a normal policy, cover that? And the companies I talked to said, no, they probably fight it because that water damage was not from Mother Nature. That water damage was from a man-made structure.
Yeah.
Now, if it was Mother Nature doing it, they would cover it.
Yeah.
But they would say they would fight it. So, how it would come out in the course of the lawsuit, but they would fight it. So it's not just a matter of, well, you should have insurance because, technically, well, previously it never happened because the elevation of 13, when it goes south to the Boot Creek, drop down, it would run over there, not build up to his place. So, I don't think we can use insurance as a scapegoat. Well, should have turned an insurance company, because I know they would have fought it. Any insurance company with any kind of property value damage like that would investigate it pretty severe. I've had a brother that was an adjuster in insurance companies, and he said, yeah, they'd be in there fighting that like tooth and nail down there. So.
First of all, let me express my sympathy because I can only imagine how difficult a situation that was. It's hard to watch things that you have treasured and worked on for a long time be ruined, and I'm sorry about that. I have some questions, and I'm glad Rachel is here, and I don't necessarily expect you to have an answer on the spot. And I am happy to listen and understand this situation better. Just like the rest of us, I wasn't on the board at that time. I'm thinking, but I am weighing my sympathy and my understanding of the heartache that you guys are going through and the angst over, oh, dang, why did this happen to us? And our precedent as far as, and obviously this is a work session, we're not making any decisions here. But if we would make a decision to compensate, that's not something that we do lightly. And it's not something we don't do without lots and lots of vetting and a really solid legal reason to do it. And lots of documentation and looking at what the other pieces are, like insurance, like, I don't know. I know government has not only the right, but the responsibility to keep people safe. And New Richland is a population center. And so we are charged with keeping people safe before we keep property safe. I don't know how that plays into this situation, but I'm sure it does. So it's not as easy as coming to the county board and saying, give us $30,000, we'll be happy and go away, because we set a precedent then for anybody who comes in and says, the county cut down my tree or ran over my snowplow or hit my dog. And obviously none of those are nearly as severe or as costly as what you have gone through. But all the more reason why we need guidance precedent to even think about this. There's, at this point, while I really appreciate understanding the situation so much better, I don't know what our liability is. I don't know that.
There is a state law in the statute about liabilities. Anybody that builds a structure and holds back water, elevates the water and causes damage to the product behind it is liable. That's a state statute.
But how that applies to an individual as opposed to a government is likely different. It is likely different. If I built it, dang right, you should sue my butt. And you could probably win because that statute applies to individuals. I don't know how that applies to governments. And so I'm going to ask that our county attorney help us with some of that moving forward to see what liability we may have. And it's not for lack of sympathy I'm saying this. I absolutely understand how heartbreaking this is. But I also know that as the local government, we need to be thoughtful about setting precedents and making sure we're doing things. We want to do what's right, but we also have to make sure we're following statute and not setting precedent that is going to get us in trouble down the road.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Mulder. If we can back up a minute, we're talking about hypothetical payment or compensation, but I need to hear from the family what the actual ask is. What the actual ask of the board is. We've heard a lot about, well, the county has responsibility here. The county was responsible for the result of these damages. We've seen estimates, we've talked about a lot of different numbers. What's the actual ask?
What's the actual dollar amount? You're asking for compensation. He's asking, what is the actual dollar amount of compensation that you're asking from this board? I gave him an estimate and stuff like that, but I never, it wasn't my role to put a dollar figure on it. So it's up to the family here. Have you guys come up with a dollar figure of what the exact dollar figure is you're asking for?
Well, I mean, if I'd asked for the outrageous, I mean, I don't want to be, unreasonable, but I would say at least it would cover the 2 lawnmowers, and that would be about 30-some thousand. And the rest of the stuff, I guess, just gotta go the way it is, because I sure as hell ain't gonna ask the county to give me $100,000 or 80,000, because that is, I know I got kicked in the butt over that, but I'm not that unreasonable. But I just, it's hard to take, yes. So I'd say the neighborhood of 30,000, and the rest, I guess, has to be just discarded, and like we were talking about that berm, and I know there's 3 farmers that in my lifetime that's got fined for putting up berms along their line fence to stop the water on their neighbor. And they got fined for property damage and everything else. And one of them was my relation, and Christopherson knows Harlan Slate. And he got fined, Oscar Martison and George Arneman fined him, and Henry Thompson got fined, so I can name oodles of them. So I mean, so putting the berm up on the highway, that was against the state law, because putting the berm up is been since I was a kid on, that I've understood that you can't stop the natural water flow. So I don't know if I got a case or not. I mean, that's what it was, because I know these people, and I got a few more that I can say about changing the water flow, and Christopherson knows that too, and I not mention any name, but he, you can't change water flow in rivers and any place else. You can't straighten them out. I don't know why you can't straighten the river out to the water flow nice, but that's against the law to monkey with water flow. So I don't know if I got a case or not. I guess I just better keep my mouth shut.
You do, but you're just asking for 30,000. You're asking for 30,000
Well, yeah.
for the damages.
So I don't know. That one deal there, that lawnmower, that's 24,000. Just one vehicle in there, and I got cars and tractors and stuff that's no good, and motors that I had to throw out, and so but ask the county for anything like that, that would be unreasonable too. So I would accept 30,000, and if I don't get that, then I guess I just ain't got nothing, I guess.
Well, the worst part about this whole thing is that for Paul, I know it's not as much about the money probably as about the passion. You know, the things that were ruined were your passion. You know, the snowmobiles and the tractor and the engines, it's what you, so it's hard to put value on that, but it hurts. And believe me, I laid awake at night thinking about this situation, and it's not fun for any of us up here, but we're just, like Commissioner Malter said, we're trying to figure out what is right, what is the right answer. So I hope you know that we feel for you too, and what you went through, you know, in 16. What I've tried to talk to some of you guys about a little bit too is I hope that, I'm not so certain that if the same situation come again, what would be done? Because we're hoping to get some kind of mitigation in the next couple of years to help with the flooding in town, because we're starting to see more of these big rain events. But there's still that risk the next few years that what happens if we get that kind of rain again? So I hope that somehow there can be some prevention steps taken. You know, if it were to happen again, can we be more ready for it?
Well, the state, you know, they were down from Minneapolis to water control deal. Me and my son was at 2 or 3 meetings, and that state guy, he thought he knew it all, but I spoke up, and my son did too, after so far in the meeting, because it was so unreasonable, that meeting, that he was, you know, right and everybody else was wrong. But I told him how to fix that. And I said, put a berm around the sportsman club over to that hill, and then all the way up to that, well, Slake owns that hill now, up there. Put a berm along the highway there, and that would stop the water flow. And, oh, he said, are you an engineer? I said, no, just a little common sense that tells you how to do that. Because if you put a berm up, then the water would stay back in that's about, I would say, slough ground all the way back in through there. It would be over 100 acres. That it would be a reservoir. But there used to be a ditch. I don't think you're old enough to remember, but over there by Rugerns or, you know, and then the water used to be a ditch that run along his property there. And and then the water went down to
Corner
and down through there. And so then well, back in the later 60s, so there was so much water coming through there. And so then the county opened up that ditch like through Vince Peterson and down through there. Because otherwise it was flooding the farm ground out, because there was so much water coming down that way. So then the county built, dug that ditch to the south. So then more water came. You know, south of Northland. That was back in the 60s too, that ditch was reopened. And
Well, Doug, as far as your comment about if it floods again, you know, hopefully we don't have a flood before we get the resolve in Richmond, but, you know, the damage has already been done. The motors that were damaged have already been thrown out. all that's been damaged. So there really isn't much more to damage in there that hasn't been damaged, so.
Right, but if he does have things in there, either have them more mobile or up on shelves or something, which, that's expense too, to build shelves and put things on shelves, if I understand. But yeah, I mean, that's what I don't know. I haven't been in the shed, but
Well, I'm sure if.
I hope some of those things are happening, because I don't know that the same thing wouldn't happen again if we had to save the nursing home.
Right. I guess if it happens again, the dikes goes in, and you guys gotta get in there right away and start pulling stuff out of there, because, until that dike went in, they didn't know how high that water could get. And so that was a learning experience for everybody.
I'm trying to clarify in my notes, the $30,000, what I heard mentioned was predominantly covering the cost of the 2 mowers. And Larry, I think in your notes, you had mentioned as part of that estimate, the mower that was purchased, the Toro, that I heard mentioned, I believe, that was purchased in 2015 for $12,000, was damaged and then traded in. And I think the claim was $9,000 you were requesting in that estimate. Was there another mower as well that?
No, well, Paul's,
Big tractor mower.
yeah, I guess you should say, Paul, in that 30,000, it should be just cover all the damages that we submitted in that documentation, not just tied to one mower. Because evaluation of that mower is gonna be not gonna match what they're asking for, so.
Yeah.
Just state that 30,000 was for the documentation we submitted, because that covered partial, the lawnmowers and all, and then snowmobiles and all that, so.
Well, I know, but it got to use a little reason too,
Right.
But,
But that's what he
huh?
he already submitted the estimate of all the stuff, $30,000. So that's what we're just gonna go with. Just say whatever submitted is what I want. That's all you have to say. Whatever he submitted,
That covers it.
that covers what I want.
That covers your,
Huh?
that covers your lawnmower, yes. Just say, because what they're trying to do is just say, well, we're only gonna cover the loss of the lawnmower. And you have more than,
No,
Oh, yeah.
he doesn't need to state anything different than he stated. I'm trying to clarify based upon what you provided, Larry, and what Paul is stating and what I'm hearing, trying to understand, tying the number to the actual request, the items themselves. So if what I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is that the estimate that Larry sent in, which is what included opinion of the family at that point in time when it was created, is ultimately what the request is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about why is this just coming forward now, like 7 years later, to the board now for an ask? That's the part that I'm just struggling with understanding. Why now?
well, I didn't. 2018 is when I got on SWCD, and one of the first functions I attended was the January 2019, when the county had their public meeting in Richland about what that current study that they initiated to study the possibility of flood control projects. And that's the first time I heard Paul talk about it, and I knew he had water problems in there, but I didn't know how severe. And being just get on soil SWCD, I thought, well, that's issues to take care of. But we had a LeSueur public hearing meeting in March this year, and afterwards, there were quite a few nursery people sat around together. And that's when Randy Lure started talking about damage in Falls, where he had oil buckets floating in the sheds, and I didn't know it was that bad. And so that's what triggered me to start asking questions. So I went and talked to Paul about this, what's going on. That's why, I got involved, and that's how it got to the point where it is now. I wasn't aware of things back then, or to the point of knowing things.
And he kind of gave up because he couldn't get answers from anybody.
Okay, so, and then one of the big questions that was asked but was not answered is, one of the commissioners asked you, like the status of the insurance and like, did you go after FEMA money, anything like that? Because those are the things that also, I mean, that's why we address things right away when they happen, so that we can maybe see if there's something we can do that isn't covered. But I mean, how do we know that it wouldn't have been covered by funds back then? And that's part of the problem with addressing it so many years later, is we don't have those answers.
I don't think he was aware that FEMA was available at that point. Nobody ever mentioned that he could have went to FEMA.
And then, just to be clear, my understanding is there wasn't insurance on this particular shed? Is that?
He had insurance on it, yes.
Okay. Did you get insurance funds back, anything? Did
No.
you get anything?
No.
And why, did you receive a letter from your insurance agency or anything stating why you didn't get paid out?
They don't have flood insurance.
Okay. And they didn't consider it like active, nature or anything like
We're
that?
not in a flood zone.
Yep.
And most insurance companies will not cover floods because it's not a flood zone. You have to specifically, and you never had flood, water in your shed ever. So that was the first thing. So why put it on there if you've never had that issue?
All right, thank you.
Anyone?
Larry, you got on SWCD in 2018. Has SWCD as an organization given an opinion on this at all?
SWCD as an organization is not involved with this.
But should they be, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, no, because that's not their role to get involved with this. Our role is to work with property owners to put structures in place on the properties. And so this, this is not a role of SWCD. I'm not doing this through SWCD.
Anything else?
My role as SWCD is when, I hear about things, I need to investigate it, and I looked into it, and that's what I did, but, the role of SWCD is not in this part of it.
Thank you.
You guys, anything else?
Is there anything else you want to say, Paul?
No, I guess I said more than enough, but Christopherson knows I always say what I think.
That's what I like about you, Paul.
Yes.
You don't leave anything on the table.
I always did that. If I don't like something, I come point blank out. Because, beating around the bush don't get you no place. No.
Right. Well,
We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our side of what this is going on.
Well, thank you for coming in.
yeah, thanks for coming in. We'll have more discussions on this. So.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you will inform us for the next.
And I
meeting?
will try to keep, what's that?
You'll have a meeting with us?
Probably not. We'll try to come up with some kind of decision, and maybe I could contact with you guys.
Okay.
And I also want to keep in contact with you guys on what's happening in Richland with the mitigation part of flooding. So,
Good.
yeah.
Work session.
closed.
9:23.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome, everyone. Do we have a sign-in sheet? We do? Good. All right, is anyone here for public comment? And if you are here for public comment, please come up to the podium, state your name, address.
Sign in anything. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies.
Good morning.
My name is Warren Markison. I know that doesn't mean anything to you, and that's fine. I'd like to keep it that way. Thank you for allowing me to have some time this morning. My concern for being here this morning is to address the Waseca County upcoming needs. Waseca County, for the first time, at least to my knowledge, has detained a female inmate in our county jail for an extended period. Having been received on October 20th, and finally finding a bed that would accept her on Friday, November 17th. So that's almost a month incarcerated here. There are no facilities to safely detain male and female inmates here at the same time. I think we're all aware of that. And Waseca County is being exposed to possible lawsuits that could possibly hurt the county badly. And should something happen to any inmate while in the custody of our agencies. I'd like for you to consider a scenario here, draw you a word picture if I could. Fast forward, let's say 3 years. This case that's presently pending has gone without a hitch. The inmate has been transferred to a qualified facility that meets her needs. The trial is over, she's been detained, and she's in a state facility. All is good. The decision to keep a jail in Waseca County, along with its required upgrades to meet DOJ standards, has been voted and has failed to pass. Waseca County no longer has a jail. What does that look like exactly? Waseca County has been forced to contract out, I use those words loosely, all of the violators arrested in our county. Our officers now become virtual Ubers of the court, transferring prisoners to and from neighboring counties for court dates, as well as medical appointments and whatever else is required by the courts while charged in Waseca, but incarcerated in another county. Herein lies a problem. There's no such thing as a contract to hold. That doesn't exist. Neighboring counties are not required to take every prisoner we arrest. If they do take them, they can require Waseca County to find a different bed for them for any reason and at any time, even though they may have agreed to house them at the onset. Should that become the issue, we might say, well, we should write a contract then, not allowing jurisdictions to kick back our prisoners. That sounds well and good. If you can get at least one jurisdiction to do that, you're going to be very fortunate. However, we must remember here that every 4 years there are elections in every county. There's a possible new sheriff. There may be new commissioners and new ideas that come along with each election. What guarantee do we have that our shiny new contract will not be canceled? I suggest that there is no guarantee. Our agencies could be left with no recourse and nowhere to house our
prisoner. Back to reality. This is today. The available beds that will accept and care for both genders of mentally ill prisoners today are very limited. Only St. Peter and Anoka are qualified as of right now. The numbers of mentally challenged folks are being arrested are becoming greater all over the state. It's not only a Waseca County problem. It's a statewide problem. Taking this a step further, looking ahead. What officer looking for a job with a law enforcement agency, either with a whole bunch of credentials and years of experience, or fresh maybe out of college, looking for a new agency to go to work for in the state of Minnesota? After all, they live here. Okay. Do you think they would consider coming to Waseca County to apply for an Uber job? Literally, hauling prisoners to other counties and other jurisdictions back and forth? And that's how they want to spend their career, or at least the first part of it? I don't think so. Finding new and replacement officers for both of our agencies, both the city and the county, are going to suffer because of that. I want to change the directions here a bit to say this. Our officers in Waseca County are doing their very best to safely house the inmates under their care. I know, because I have personally visited with them, the officers and the inmates, including female recently being held here. I also wish to acknowledge County Attorney Rachel Cornelius for the concern she has for the residents of Waseca County. She has the safety of our citizens as well as the safety of our inmates foremost in her thoughts. And she struggles with the circumstances she is forced to consider, both now and in the future. In the most recent case, more than one jurisdiction has decided to reduce the original charges brought against her in order to justify letting her go, washing their hands of the problem. And she's a danger to society. We know, because the incident here in Waseca endangered a man's life. Attorney Cornelius has not chosen that path, and I admire her for it. So here we are, with a jail that no longer meets safety standards and is on a short list to close in its present condition. What are our choices? I only know of 2 or 3, maybe there's more. Of course, the first one is obviously to close the jail and live with the circumstances and all of its fallout. Or remodel our present building and make it a short-term 72-hour facility, whereby the prisoner, after being arraigned and charged, will need to be contracted, I use that term loosely again, to a different agency. Even then, this would also require upgrades to allow both genders, even for the short-term hold, even if it is just overnight, as well as the transports that start to and from whatever jurisdiction is holding the prisoner. Or we could build a new jail that would meet the needs of Waseca County and keep our officers in the field and on the streets, rather than being used as a transport service for the court. In my opinion, as a resident and taxpayer of Waseca County for 30+ years, I have a new and fully functional jail is not a want. It is a need, ladies and gentlemen. The safety and security of our streets and communities, both rural and within Waseca, is at stake here in whatever decision is made. Losing our jail means we become fully dependent on other jurisdictions, and we lose control. To a degree, for sure, of our court outcomes. I suggest that losing our jail will have very negative effects on how our county attorney can effectively keep us safe. I'm hoping, as I stand here today, that the search for funding is well on its way to find a solution to the upcoming challenge that we are facing sooner than you think. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for public comment? Public comment? Public comment? If there is no other public comment, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Commissioner Krause, do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Christopherson?
No, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Malter?
No, Mr. Chair.
Michael?
No, sir.
Beth?
No.
With that being said, I look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Malter, a second by Commissioner Krause. Any other discussion? None, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Approval of the county board minutes, if everyone has had a chance to look those over. We'll see County Board of Commissioner work session minutes, October 17th, 2023. And we'll see County Board of Commissioners meeting minutes, October 17th, 2023. I would look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. We have a motion as a slate. Is there a second?
There is.
Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Malter. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, that motion carries. Moving on to the consent agenda is approval of the bills, transfer between funds, November EDA abatements, snowmobile grant and aid agreement, October 2023 monthly electronic funds transfer report, and November 2nd, 2023 planning commission meeting update. Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Krause, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 5 are action items. A is a riparian fund recommendation. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. What you have before you for consideration this morning is another riparian fund recommendation for a pet rigger in section 7 of Blooming Grove Township. Had already planted this 30-acre section with the prescribed cover crops. That's why, if you have any questions, and you read through and saw this seeding window ended November 1st, the cover crops were already established before this made it to the agenda. So that's what we are asking the board for, is to consider and approve reimbursement for 30 acres of cover crop to the tune of $1,200.
Let's get a motion on. Oh. Motion, is there a second?
There is.
Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Malter. Discussion.
Just remind me, is this a cost share or is it a certain dollar amount?
No, it is just a flat based fee. So it's not a reimbursement, it is just a flat fee.
We give them so much an acre.
We give them so much.
And it must be
$40
$40
an
an
acre
acre.
was the miraculous amount.
And this has already passed through SWCD, and they have recommended it to us.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Thank you.
Chris. B is SP 088-596-002 Partnership Agreement, Carbon Reduction Program Project. Mr. Jim.
Good morning.
Morning.
2 items for today. So the first one, as you stated, is the Carbon Reduction Program project. Just a little background, the Carbon Reduction Program is a program funded out of IIJA, Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act of the federal government. This program is designed to reduce carbon dioxide emissions from on-road highway sources. The feds are passing along about $21 million annually to the state of Minnesota, which then must solicit for eligible projects and make awards accordingly. And again, there's a laundry list of projects that are eligible, but the ones that kind of strike BOC County and District 7 in general is probably the purchase of electric vehicles, zero emission vehicles. So that is the application all of the 13 counties in District 7 applied for and were awarded $910,000 of carbon reduction funds for the purchase of one electric pickup truck for each of the 13 counties in D7. The program is 80% federal funds, 20% local match. I think in the back of the agreement, which is really what we're here for today, with Blue Earth County, kind of identifies the estimated costs, roughly $15,320 of local share for purchase of an EV. And what will happen if the board chooses to approve and execute the agreement with Blue Earth County would be Blue Earth County would solicit and advertise for bids, and supposedly a dealership would bid on supplying the pickups. Just because of likely procurement issues with one dealership being able to obtain 13 EVs through their allotment from a manufacturer is not too likely. So the program or the project has been split into two, with Blue Earth County taking 7 of the pickups and Cottonwood County going to solicit and advertise for the other 6. And Waseca County falls in with the Blue Earth County portion of the project. So again, in front of you today is an agreement with Blue Earth County to enter into that agreement. They would receive all federal funds. Waseca County would reimburse our 20% upon delivery and possession of the EV pickup. Let's see. I got some stuff to say. Does come with a charger. We'd have to have that installed, so that would be a minor cost above and beyond the price of the vehicle. But it does come with a level 2 charger. Let's see. And I don't know. I know EVs are kind of a polarizing topic of discussion because I had a chance to talk with a few of you already. Kind of gets into personal beliefs or professional opinions as well as political affiliations. So just trying to avoid all that if I can, but buying this truck is about the cheapest truck we can buy. It's 20 cents on the dollar. We can add it into our fleet. We can see how an EV works for us as a department. Whether you choose to believe or not, they're probably not going away, EVs in general. And it's a relatively low investment for us to add a vehicle to our fleet, especially post-COVID when state contract pricing is no longer a thing. We're paying basically on the lot prices for the trucks. So essentially $20,000 pickup is what we're talking about here. So yeah, I think that's my pitch if I have one.
You want to give the highway subcommittee's take? Yeah, we discussed it at length and pros and cons and the costs and the pitfalls and do we want to go down that road? or not. And so we really didn't come with a recommendation, we just were gonna pitch it to the entire board here to make the decision. And but it does, the only reason I would say we should enter into this would be, it gives us the opportunity to get an EV vehicle into the fleet and see how it performs and see if it's something the county even wants down the road. And it's a reasonable way to get a pickup into the fleet.
Did they have a end of life usage on this, or do we turn it in, or?
So that we would be buying the truck. The question has been posed to the state and the feds, because typically federal money comes with you own it or you maintain it for its service life. So we've asked that question, haven't got a direct answer back yet, but the feds are gonna say that we should drive it for its useful service life, which somebody has to define yet at the federal level. I haven't got that response back yet. The reality of the situation is, once we've closed out the project with the feds, which may be a year after we take delivery, just to do all the paperwork and everything, we've already been reimbursed. We're kind of asked if we get no money. It's our pickup to do what we want. But that is a good question. And one of the reasons to be a little bit cautious perhaps is because they could say, it's a year life on the truck. That's all we should drive it. The specs crafted for going out to bid kind of model what's out there right now for standard warranties, 8-year warranty on battery, where it's specing the extended range battery, long-term charger and everything like that coming with it. Otherwise, it's kind of a normal 36-month bumper warranty, kind of warranties and things like that built into what we advertise and solicit bids on.
I would make a motion so we can have more discussion on this.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll say.
We have a motion and a second. Now we're open for discussion.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chair. The estimated value is $76,600 for a half-ton pickup.
Yep.
With just standard equipment. Right. We can buy a one-ton truck, diesel or gas, for $60,000. And then I'm looking at, the $15,320 that the county's got to give. Well, that's just for the pickup. But you got to plug it in someplace.
Right.
So you got to get some extra hookups.
We'd have to wire the charger.
So all said and done, you're probably going to have $20,000 into it by the time you get set up. Then who's going to drive it? But you can't have Jared drive. You can only get 300 miles on it at one city. You can't drive it in a snowstorm or, for an extended period of time. So, and then we sit in a county, an ag county that's got an ethanol plant, and we grow corn here. Why would we want to bring in an EV to the highway department to see, instead of growing all more diesel and more gas? So that's my thinking part of it. Sorry about my voice, it's a little bit slow today, but I think the EVs have a place that it's probably not in our highway department right now. So that's my view on it.
I know this comes with a charger. Do we have other charging stations in our county that would accommodate this, other than home base?
There are, yes.
Any idea how many?
And I know at Burger King, and
okay.
I guess other than that.
But here in all of them almost certainly would be here in town. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, it would be definitely a charge it overnight in our shop.
Sure.
So it wouldn't be your vehicle because you wouldn't be able to take it home?
I don't take a vehicle home now.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay.
But to Commissioner Kelsey's point, you know, it would fit most likely in engineering, whether my daily driver or my assistant's daily driver to or inspection to projects. You know, it doesn't work for our maintenance supervisor because he does take the pickup home and we couldn't expect him to plug it in his house. Plus he puts on probably 3 miles a day for this.
So what did you say, the engineering department?
Yeah, like they can himself or assistant engineer.
Just get into work and then drive it.
Yep, the projects are.
Carbon reduction program project.
Mm-hmm.
We still have nowhere to recycle these batteries. We can't take them here at our solid waste. And this is a way larger battery than an e-bike or your cell phone. And no one's figured that out yet.
No, the little bit of research I did, you know, roughly 5% of these batteries are being recycled and only about 50% of the materials are being recycled out of that 5%. And that's just where we're at technology-wise on recycling things.
But carbon reduction sounds cool.
It does. It's, again, it's kind of I didn't want to, you know, the beliefs and opinions and political side of things aside, you know, this is some of that IIJ money that likely BOC County would be competitive for on any other level, whether it's discretionary grants or other competitive grants. You can't keep on a national level with all of the other red tape usually associated with the money, but this is one word. So we, you know, and that's where one word G7 in general fit. So that's where we threw our application in and scored, I guess.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion?
I have my reservations, those same reasons Commissioner Krause stated. What is we're not far, are we far enough into this on a 10-year-old vehicle what the trade-in value is on? Is it worth anything after 10 years?
That's a great question. I guess I don't know that I can answer that.
Unless you replace that battery, nobody's gonna want that vehicle. The battery's 8 to 10 years old.
Right. And we also don't know, even if our name's on the list, we don't know if we're getting.
Well, that's the other side of things. This would just be the agreement to commit to buying one. We still have to solicit bids and actually have a dealership, you know, bid on it, that he or she can obtain 7 EVs. And then, you know, if you read the other part of the news, production is slow, demand is slowed. We don't know when we may see this pick up. Similar to our team we ordered 2 years ago, we still haven't gotten it.
Chair?
Yes.
With all due respect to the farmers in the room, me being one of them, I understand the reservations we would have about the cost, recycling, the batteries, all those kinds of things. But as someone who has always appreciated that technology does evolve, and that sometimes when you start off with the technology, trying it out lets you learn all the ways it does not work. But it also lets you see some of the ways it does work. And lets you do some experimenting and lets you make some gradual changes that help you adapt over time. I have no doubt that electric vehicles will get better. There's a lot of resources being put into their development. And if we don't get one for 2 years or 3 years, because it takes that long to solicit this, I have no doubt that whatever we get will be better than the ones that are being built today. That being said, if I had a chance to drive an electric vehicle and only spend $20,000 on it, and maybe drive it for 3 years and then figure out how to get rid of it, I would do that. I would absolutely do that for 3 to 5 years of driving a relatively new pickup and see how it works and find out what works and what doesn't work. And then I will have more information for the next round. Because as we know, we don't buy equipment that with the idea, unlike my husband who says, I'm gonna buy this combine and I'm gonna have it forever. That's not how it works in our fleet. We buy it, we try it, we see what works, we see what doesn't. If it doesn't work, we get rid of it. I don't think that this is an unreasonable investment to have the use of a pickup and to try out the new technology. But like I said, I tend to be more of an early adapter, and so and I wouldn't necessarily buy my own EV because I go more than 300 miles sometimes in a day. But for the use, the possible use in our highway department, for driving around during the day when you know you're not going to go more than 300 miles and you need to run around town, I'd be interested in what we learn about the cost. What does it do to our electric bill to charge it? We have a chance to gather some data that might help inform future decisions. So that's my take.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Commissioner Krause,
No.
Commissioner Multer,
Yes.
Commissioner Christopherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hargis.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-1.
Thanks, Jim. Next one is contract number 812302, final acceptance of payment for CASA 15 pavement rehabilitation.
Yep, so this is the project, federal aid project constructed earlier this season, like May-ish, May, June. Crane Creek Asphalt was our contractor. Milling and stabilized old reclamation and new pavement surfacing. This road was a stop on our road tour in August. It turned out nice. Value of work certified by the engineer is $2,203,480.67, which is about 94% of the original contract amount of $2.35 million. Again, this was federally funded, so 80% of it, for $1.76 million, was federal aid. And then I split the local 20% share evenly between local option sales tax and regular construction funding. So about $220,000 each. This one is coming to you late in the year because we're waiting for Office of Civil Rights to do their DEP final clearances for the project and review the contractor's paperwork. Final payment in the amount of $22,034.81 is due to Crane Creek, and I would recommend acceptance of the work and authorization of payment.
Looking for a motion to accept.
I would move that.
I'll second. We have a motion by Commissioner Krause, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did we get somebody get a road grader yesterday? Did we? No, it went by at 13. Brand new one. I got it. Not us.
Is it John Deere?
It's yellow.
Yellow. Didn't show up at our shop.
Okay.
So do we?
I don't know. Somebody out there.
We are such a bunch of guys. Oh, new equipment, I wonder who got it.
Yeah, that's what we do. Right, next is resolution 2023-48, accepting donation from Waseca Area Foundation and E.F. Johnson Foundation.
I can talk through this one, I think. Pretty standard. We've done this a few times before. Statutorily, we have to have a resolution as a county entity in order to accept donated funds. So we appreciate the gesture by the Waseca Area Foundation and E.F. Johnson Foundation, and resolution 2023-48 before you does just that, fulfilling that statutory obligation to be able to accept those dollars.
I would move this resolution.
Thanks. We have a motion by Commissioner Malter, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Is there discussion? Where does the educational outreach, what does that actually mean? Thank you.
Sure. Just wanted to let you know I applied for a grant through the foundation to use for just some additional resources for drug and internet safety materials, and so we can expand our outreach into different parts of the county and just have more materials and to present to our youth.
So is this paper or online based? Or
it could be both. Okay. Papers, stickers, pencils, materials, any type of training materials, whether it's internet based or online. So it's one-time grant just to increase our outreach to our youth and our adult population for drugs and scams and sex trafficking, any type of education to make sure our population don't become victims.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Good. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next is the second half appropriations. Look for a motion in a second before we do discussion.
I'll move it.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second, there is.
We have a motion by Commissioner Malter, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Is there discussion?
So there was some corrections made in the second half.
Yeah, there were, as noted in the summary, there were a couple in the first half appropriations that were carried over from 2022. Not substantial amounts, but I wanted to correct them based upon what was actually budgeted in 2023.
So the totals come the way they're supposed to. So they're
exactly, yeah. The only deviation from the first half in entirety is the $10,000 opioid allocation to Greater Mankato United Way for the Mental Health Navigator program. And the reasoning behind that is typically that the initial resolution stated January, which is when that funding would begin, which is why I wanted to give the clarification on it, when in reality their program started with the school year. So we're already getting a benefit from the school districts. So typically they would like to see those donations in October, November of any given year. So I would look to amend that original resolution in the future to include it in the second half appropriation list of any given year. So the deviation there especially is those are opioid fund dollars, they're not general fund dollars, not levy dollars, they're those settlement dollars.
Can you remind me where 4751 and 4752 went on the old schedule?
No.
That was the school district space grant and therapeutic program.
Yep, so that one lapsed 2 years ago, subsequent to conversations that we had with Min Prairie, we had with the school district, we had with the Waseca County Collaboration for Families. There's one other. I don't know if it was South Country.
Public health is also
Public
part
health
of
as well,
that
too.
discussion. And not just Waseca School District, but Janesville and Richland School Districts as well are on the family collaborative end.
Yeah. Oh, and it was SCHRC was the other group that was part of that. So it's kind of a nuanced thing where I believe the actual employee is an HRC employee that works within the school districts. That was a program that was previously covered by Human Services in the past, that we were trying to get clarification of whose job is it actually to fund this and what does this individual do. So in some ways, our mental health navigator program was a more cogent replacement because we see the individual, we know the individual, they're within the schools, and we're working directly with them and getting direct feedback from the school districts. That isn't to try to minimize the importance of the therapeutic program. I'm sure that it is beneficial. It just became the question of, is this something that the county should continue to be paying for, or should it be absorbed by the school's general fund budget, which it has been. So the conversation at that point in time with the superintendent was, if the county doesn't pay for it, it becomes a general fund request from the school district, which is how it's been operating.
Okay. And one last question. Does anyone else have any other discussion? One last question on my part is I know we talked about the Soil and Water Conservation District appropriation and we decided anything for 24. Anything different?
I think we had come down, nothing probably 100%, but we were thinking cutting it in half to about 50,000 total.
Correct. That is the placeholder for 2024 is 50,000.
And have they been made aware of that?
Have they?
I believe so.
They know it's going to be cut.
Yes.
They have, at this point, they have significant reserves. There's also a lot of moving parts there with uptaking the management of one watershed, one plan new sewer. And at our last meeting, there was discussion about possibly adding staff there and some of their capital needs. So they're in the process of refining some of their budget scenarios moving forward as far as getting a capital improvement plan more solidified with regular turnover and exploring what other kind of help that they're going to need in light of additional state funding that they've gotten that will offset some of what we are deciding not to send next year will be offset by additional funding that they're getting from the state.
Okay. So we also asked Mr. Chair to kind of reverse engineer the process and come back at the end of the year with the cited need. That is something that will have to continue to be fleshed out as well too. But rather than upfront, the county somewhat blindly committing to a fiscal need when there are stated to be many moving parts, to come back after the fact at the end of the year and talk about here's what the actual dollars and cents ended up being from a net revenue and expenditure standpoint, and then actually base the appropriation on the need itself so that the county doesn't get put in a position where they are simply supplementing the reserves of SWCD and we're actually contributing to the cost need for services and programs that they're rendering on the county's behalf.
Thank you. Any other questions? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Moving on to administration. Michael?
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Can I step up
yeah, sure.
a minute to back up a little bit? I know there's been discussion on this, and I'm not sure what the right approach is, but the Richland ambulance appropriation.
Yes.
I know we've been doing it for a few years, but now we don't support any other ambulances, do we?
Correct. That has been a topic of conversation, other than the EMS.
Central EMS is coming next year we're going to ask for 2,500 from each of their member entities.
So like Janesville has an ambulance also,
Not an ambulance, they have
rescue.
a rescue and fire department.
And the city supports that? Or who?
I don't know how much the city supports it. I mean, they fundraise and they're volunteer,
It's just like the fire department.
they're a volunteer.
It's all volunteer. And
Yeah.
that's the same way with nurse and ambulance, and they're to self-sustain however they can get their money. Correct.
That's something we didn't know, Trey.
I think in all fairness to other communities that have a rescue squad, it has to be looked at.
Yeah, we can certainly revisit that for 2024 and have that as a topic of conversation over the next month. The ask this year for New Richland was 7,500. They cited a number of reasons and they actually requested an open-ended amount over and above that as well as the county was willing to entertain, but just left it as the actual request, of course.
7,500 total?
Total for the year, yes. That was this year. So, it's similar in scope of the previous EDA conversations maybe that the board has had over the last few years. And it's been a common talking point that we continue to massage the appropriations list going forward. And there's maybe still a little bit left to do there. A lot has happened in the cleanup. So we can explore that as well.
Good.
Kevin? Yeah. Hope maybe you've gotten a chance to see what the new flooring looks like in the lower level of the annex, the courthouse annex building. It turned out nice. It certainly brightened it up substantially. So that was the phase one of the project. We'll see the next subsequent phases happening over these next 2 weeks. We'll see Woodridge interiors in the interior of the courthouse, possibly as soon as next week as well. And excited to see what that turns out to be. So getting some needed refreshments and some 50 to 120-year-old spaces. But in the 120-year-old spaces, being a little bit more aware of what the historical authenticity should be, and restoring it more to that end, and less just about functionality, but more the authenticity there. Number of projects still that will continue on through the end of this year. We've had a chance to drive through Courthouse Park as well too, to see some of the progress out there. Septic's being fully installed at this point in time, and the infrastructure there. That connection to the caretaker facility will wait until the spring, so that we're not trying to fully charge a new system over the winter. But the restroom facility itself should be hooked up. It's ready to go, though mostly winterized at this point in time. Continue to see a lot of foot traffic out there though, even still this last week. So I'm glad to see the continued utilization of that property. Continue to, well, you already have a couple of placeholders on your calendar for some budget conversations and work sessions. So again, if there's anything that pops in your mind that I can better prepare for and bring you in advance of those, I'd be happy to do so. Just reach out to me individually and let me know what specifically you'd like to see. As I mentioned this morning, briefly, I'll have some revised property impact scenarios and assessments for you to be a little bit more cognizant of the discussion points that will come to you on the December 19th meeting in the evening, that annual budget conversation. So as a reminder there, the board meeting itself is at 5:30 that evening, same day, same Tuesday, the board meeting and the normal actions there at 5:30, and then the budget meeting at 6:30. And then the typical December 5th meeting on the Tuesday is now December 7th. Same time, 9:30 a.m. We'll be back in that room at that point in time. That should be all completed and ready to go. So that's coming together quickly, and that'll be a nice refresh functional space as well. Anything else for me I'd like to see? Continuing to hold conversations with architects, developers on both, possible justice center plans, jail plans, and the community service building as well too. Meeting with Christian from Region 9 next Friday, December 1st, and to have everything submitted on that day and just sit down and work through together some things. And waiting for a couple other letters that should be there to your so assuming that all lines up appropriately, that will be taken care of by the end of next week. Anything else for me? Updates for the board?
I do, we briefly talked about it yesterday, but I'll bring it up in front of the rest of the commissioners. Is there there's no American Legion in Janesville?
There is an organization, but they don't have a space anymore.
Okay, but you have American Legion?
There is.
And there is one, and Wasika and Waldorf?
I don't know if Waldorf has an organization.
Okay. We have requests from 2 different individuals for markers and posts for the cemeteries for the veterans. And Michael stated we still had some return money from the Veterans Memorial. That if you guys would be willing to find out, we could get some monies out.
They were having trouble a few years ago, them getting stolen.
They do, yeah.
People, there's some value of metals on it.
Right. Right. This was Janine's from Richland, and I know Grant Wismar after me, so.
So these are for the stakes?
Yes, the actual markers in the cemetery.
Not the footstones?
No.
Okay.
These are the flag markers.
So when the Best of Wasika, that organization facilitated our Veterans Memorial across the street. So they were the fiduciary of those funds that were awarded. And then that project decommissioned in December of 2020. They returned $2,980, which we still have set aside in the fund. So just to put numbers to what I'm talking to, so that hasn't been designated, reallocated, reassigned to anything else. It's still in that Veterans Memorial Fund. So if there are appropriate uses that synergize about $3,000 there.
I would ask the respective commissioners in their area to find out if there's a want or a need.
Okay. You know, so Denise would be the one I wanted.
Yeah, and I did talk to him the other day. I don't know what he's looking for, but, and I don't know about Waldorf, but how they're doing with those cemeteries down there.
I could look into that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all I had on that end of it, unless someone else does.
I've got a work session put down for tomorrow, but that's not. I don't know why it was in my calendar, but
sure.
I might have put it down because we were looking for that UDC one. And
I think so. Yeah.
And then we went last week.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't have anything on the schedule.
I do not.
That's not even your fault. Is it?
All right. If there's nothing else, HR, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Just 2 items I wanted to mention. It's just recruiting activities continue to be a priority. Deputy position is one that we're recruiting for, and an IT position. We do have 3 individuals that are starting with us this month, so public health. Still, that's a good thing. And then the second thing I want to mention is just the turnover. On the second page there at the last meeting, as I mentioned, some historical data to compare. So I was able to compile 4 years worth of data. So just wanted to let you take a look at that and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Not even any concerns.
Just 2 points of quick clarification, which you're aware of, but we did have 2 different stints of early retirement incentive programs over this span. So just keeping that in mind as you review some of the data.
And 21 and then 23. another thing I always like to know is just the temporary positions kind of skew things. I mean, I know like in property elections, she's really not having 6 people leave in 2022 as the election workers that are temporary.
And I do appreciate the graphs, but also those are not necessarily reflective of the size of the department either. And so, just as we understand this, understand that the size of the department is relative to the number of people moving in and out of it as well. That's correct.
Anything else? Good. Did you want to remind us about the holiday party in December?
It's the holiday party in December 8th. We're to see it all there.
That sounds good. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Otherwise, we're going to roll into commissioner reports. Commissioner Krause, you want to lead off?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Board meeting, community health in the afternoon. I skip up to the 15th, the work session, UDC. And I don't know if anybody went to the South Country. You did? You guys did it?
Yeah.
That's pretty good then.
Yeah, we had several legislators there. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, okay. It was a good program.
Lobbyists. Representatives from Tina Smith
Okay, good.
and Finstead.
Finstead.
Yeah.
Good. And that would take us to today, Sheriff has 7 o'clock this morning, then we'll work session at 8.
Commissioner Walter?
On the 7th, we had a work session, a board meeting, our community health board in the afternoon. On the 8th, well, I should say, in these last 5 weeks and moving forward the next 3 weeks, I've been working on a second legal leadership module with some other commissioners from the state of Minnesota. There's 16 of us. Very good learning, but that's got classwork throughout the week, and then we meet as a cohort once a week for an hour, and then we have a half hour as a large group at the end. So that is repeating every week here. And so that was meeting the first week of November as well. I met with public health to talk about the Power Produce program and where that ended up this season and what they're hoping to accomplish. Also on the 8th, with Commissioner Hargett, the Board of Canvas in the afternoon met to finalize election results for our primary. And then that evening, I was in Elysian for a Lake Elysian Lakes Association, and Chris Howard came along to talk about what was going on with land and water management and to make some relationship building there, so that was very good. On the 9th, there was a learning session put on by SHAC member development on cannabis and county obligations for regulation on that. And then a SHAC executive committee after that. There was a NACO Resilient Counties meeting, a virtual one that I got a chance to attend. And that evening, SWCD. On Veterans Day, I had a chance to go out to Crystal Valley. I've been invited out there for an event and got a chance to spend some time learning more about the agricultural business from the wholesale end, and also with legislators Senator Jasinski was there, Representative Daniels was there, and friends. And so got a chance to hang out with those gentlemen and ask some questions and learn some things, so that was a good thing. The 13th, the work group that I'm on for public health, for that funding work group for foundational public responsibilities met. And then that evening, the library board met. On the 14th, I was over in Lee Center with our community health board all staff meeting, and got a chance to hang out with staff and learn some things along with them, and also then present what's happening with the joint leadership team and give them a chance to ask some questions about transformation, and try to allay everybody's concerns about how their job could change in the next 10 years. Met with Jason Mack that afternoon at Cada House in Mankato. He has sent a request that we consider sharing some of our public safety funding with Cada House, in light of the work that they do in Waseca County with our law enforcement and with our human services departments. The 15th, One Watershed, One Plan. We met here, and I got the text message yesterday from staff that they pushed the big button, and One Watershed, One Plan has been officially submitted back to Bowser to start the process to actually receive funding if things go smoothly.
Who pushed the button?
SWCD as our fiscal.
Oh.
As our fiscal.
So they did.
Yeah, it has to, the button for the state system.
Yeah, I knew it had to go back to Bowser.
Yes, it does. But, so they push the magic electronic button to submit that. If all goes well, we could have funding in January to begin that. SHAC work group, that funding work group met again on the 15th. And then the 16th, I did, what did I do? I listened to a NACO presentation on Rural Action Caucus, and then I was up at Camp Ripley with AMC Futures. Boy, did I learn a lot about veterans. And that was great. Yesterday, AMC Public Health Transformation Planning meeting. We're going to do a presentation at the AMC annual conference that I'm in on. Joint leadership team met up in Bloomington yesterday afternoon, and last night Child Development and Minnesota Valley Action Council was in Mankato. And so here we go.
Thank you, Commissioner Christopherson.
Okay, November 8th was Wednesday, I believe. Highway or Public Works Subcommittee. And that later that day I had a Min Prairie Personnel Committee via Zoom. And then the 13th, we got together with Rachel and Rusty and Brian Tomford to talk over next steps with the Radio Link contract. And a couple other things that we run by Rachel as far as talking about this morning and stuff. And then on the 15th, we had that UDC work session in the morning. That was 3.5 hours. And then the 17th, we went to the South Country Legislative Forum, which was good educational for our representatives at the state and federal level. November 20th, yesterday, I had a pre-Min Prairie Joint Powers Board meeting. I always get together with Tara, or the director, ahead of the meetings, which is this afternoon. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Christopherson. On the 7th, we had the work session, 9:30 board, community health board at 1:30, and then I went to the Woodville Township meeting that night. Wednesday, the 8th, 8 a.m. was public works. 2 p.m. was the Board of Canvas, and 6 p.m. was the Waseca County Historical Society. On Monday, the 13th, we met with Rachel at 3 p.m. in her office. Wednesday, the 15th, 8 a.m. was a work session. UDC. Friday, the 17th, was the South Country in Rotana. And yesterday at 1:30 was IMTRAC, when that was virtual. And at 6 p.m. I had the food shelf / neighborhood service center. So that's what I have. Anything else?
Yeah, just one other thing, Mr. Chair, just the correction that you and I talked about yesterday about for EMC. So Matthew Cassidy had reached out yesterday afternoon and corrected an initial communique that he had sent stating that Waseca County did not receive an award. We did in fact receive an award. So he was calling predominantly to apologize for the confusion there, but the Annual Conference Award Committee did elect to award one of the Outstanding Service Awards to Commissioner Nelson posthumously in honor to service, or in honor of his service to Waseca County and the state. So just wanted you to be aware that that will take place at that banquet the first week of December. So it'll be, it's a nice honor for him and the family as well too. So that we'll place your seating arrangement a little differently, just so you are aware of that. But knowing that the previous communication that stated we didn't get an award was forwarded. I wanted to correct that as of last night, the information that we got. So you did send out earlier today just some additional information of that banquet beginning on December 5th in Minneapolis, and awards being presented at lunch. So that's something that we'll probably communicate to the family, I would imagine as well. Just want you to be aware of that.
Well, that's great. I was pretty disappointed when I got your first email that it wasn't awarded, so that's great news.
It sounds like they essentially have a couple of templates that the wrong template got sent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, something about that.
I'm glad they caught it, or we would have been sitting there unprepared.
Yeah, that would have been a little awkward.
Sure. Thank you.
So does, you gotta get registered for that banquet then?
Just for the BOC, we'll have.
Yeah, you don't have to register separately for the banquet.
Oh, okay.
Just for
All right.
our conference itself.
We'll let the family know.
Then they would. Okay, got it.
I think they just ask you to be seated by, I'm gonna say 12:15. There's just some minor logistics if you're an award recipient where you're located. There'll be one of those tables on the front that'll have the name on it. Maybe you'll just have to work through the logistics of who's talking.
Cheers.
Mr. Chair.
That's easy.
They can do it.
We'll see.
Vice. Very good too.
Mike will be there.
Yeah, he'll write it for you.
Yeah, we'll just do it. All right, anything else to come before the board? If not, I would look for a motion.
Move to adjourn.
And is there a second?
There is.
Motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned at